I'll try to keep the lights on over here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gadfly. I am your host, David Rich, with a very special guest tonight, Ally. Ally, thank you for coming on the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. I'm very excited about tonight's show, and Ally and I have known each other for quite a many years. I don't know, it's at least 10, right?
More. I mean, I've been married 10, and I think at least 12, I think.
Okay, at least 12. We worked together in a certain place when I lived in Portland, Oregon, and we had a good acquaintance for sure. We were like talking to each other, and we had a good rapport. And both of our paths changed a bit since then, and I think for the better and more fully developed on each side. And we're here to talk about those respectively. So why don't we start off with? Okay, so we're going to talk about sacred geometry, because you and I seem to have two different ideas about that. And I'm really curious to hear what yours is. And then we're going to talk about Voyager. And we're going to talk about Voyager first, aren't we?
Yeah, and that kind
Let's talk about Voyager first. Yeah,
okay.
Sacred
Geometry.
Perfect. You should just host the show. That's fine.
No, thank you. I think you're doing a great job.
Okay, cool. So why don't you go ahead? Ally, student and teacher of metaphysics, travels around the country doing metaphysics. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what Voyager is? Because you just recently introduced it to me, and I read some of what you sent me, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was fascinating. And I mean, I've been telling people, I'm like, this is definitely like some, if you will, out there stuff. But this lady is so intelligent and describes so many details. It's hard for me to dismiss it out of hand. I'm like, this is really, there's something about this that's very interesting. But go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's she's not even like, she doesn't actually know, like, she's a translator.
Right.
She doesn't, if you ask her about quantum physics, especially in today's terms, she has no idea. She'll like, I don't know, I'm an artist. But she gets these keylogically transmissions, right? It's like an email that hangs out in your bioenergetic fields, and she'll translate them. And she has, I mean, I sent you Voyagers 1, right? That's the one you were reading?
Yep.
And have you noticed at the end of different chapters or different sections, it'll say, this is the end of this person from this matrix of this race group?
I think so.
Yeah.
I read it right after you sent it to me. It's been that long, though.
Okay. Yeah, so it's translations of somebody teaching it, and she's sharing what they shared with her.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not channeled. I should make that very, very clear, because we make a differentiation in the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order between channeling and subtle communication. Channeling, specifically, the way we talk about it, is allowing someone to speak through you, which is different than allowing someone to speak to you.
Sure.
And the reason that we make the differentiation is because we don't suggest channeling. It has a tendency to override your own template if you're running
it's like being possessed.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, it is that.
It builds the pathways for it to happen permanently, where they can push you out, because there is an organic, natural way for that to happen, where you could quote unquote channel your higher self. And technically you're channeling, but it's you. So how are you going to override that template with yourself?
But
if you were to channel, say, like Toth, Toth's template running 11.5 dimensions of frequency.
All right, just real quick for the listeners, because again, I've never heard that pronunciation before. He's saying Toth. I think most people know it as Thoth, the Egyptian god of scribe, script, writing, knowledge and wisdom. The guy with the pen and the long thingy. All right, go ahead. Toth. But you keep pronouncing it that way. That's fine. I just want to make sure people know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah, and I call him that because that's how I remember him. Because he was, he lived a long time. He was an Anunnaki. I guess. Do we want to segue to there? We could talk about him for a sec.
Talk about Toth and give me like the background, because my understanding of Toth is that he is one of the Egyptian gods, and he was the god of the things I just mentioned. And there's definitely speculation on whether or not the Egyptian gods or other gods in other ancient cultures were actual leaders as real people that just got mythologized over time. Some people think that there's the alien theory, the outer space theory, that kind of thing, an interdimensional theory for sure, or just actually they were just gods.
Yeah,
they were actual gods.
Well, sure.
Oh, absolutely. No, I know that. Thank you. But go ahead. So go tell
Yeah, so
us.
Toth was a being.
Yes,
He was an
definitely a
Anunnaki
being.
soul, and he had a vision for his people. He was going to build his template because the Anunnaki were created by who are called the Anu Elohim. Anunnaki means in an ancient language that I don't remember the name of at the moment. It means the Avengers of Anu, and they came to exist after the Battle of El Anu or the War of El Anu, or translation is difficult there, but it was called El Anu. Was the conflict, and they were created as an invader race to kill humans, because humans were created as a healer race to be the guardians and healers of this place, Earth.
We screwed that up, didn't we?
Well, we had a lot of help.
Okay, because we're about as opposite of that description as you can get. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, that was the original template, and people forgot who they are. They stopped running their higher dimensional selves. They stopped running their frequency. The things that happened in Atlantis disconnected people from their higher selves. It actually disconnected the planet from being able to run 12 dimensions of frequency, and it could only run 10 for like thousands of years.
Really?
And Toth is actually involved in all of this. So I guess the whole story is going to tie up in a nice bow once we get there. We'll take a nice roundabout route there.
All right, cool. Go ahead. This is awesome.
Toth was an Anunnaki soul created by the Anu Elohim. Anu Elohim had a split. I guess we might as well just start there. The Anu Elohim had a split from the Elohai Elohim, who were the guardians of Gate 12. And they basically used their ability to run frequency to subjugate the guardians of Gate 10, which were the Seraphi Seraphim. And they became the Omicron Draconian. They changed their name. So they used their ability to run frequency to subjugate those ones, the guardians of Gate 10. And the Guardians of Gate 10 figured out that they could get more powerful in a certain way. They could kill them. They couldn't subjugate them, but they could kill them. And so then the who became the Anu Elohim went to High Council, and they were like, "Hey, these guys are out of hand. We want you to exterminate them." And High Council said, "Well, excuse me, we don't exterminate anybody. We heal it. Like if you have a something that has dis-ease in the body, we don't remove it. We heal it." And so, and have you noticed that yeah, exactly. It makes sense, right?
Yes. So it's just covering up the symptoms, over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, or we could just add 50 different petrochemicals, so that you just give all your money to ultimately Norman Rockefeller. But anyway,
we'll have you on one time. We'll talk because he's also a member of the Green Party, as am I, and we will probably should have you on to talk about that. But tonight we're talking about this.
Yes. So they said, well, and it's all connected. That's the beauty of it. Is
that was the thing about the Voyager and watching your I'm sorry to interrupt you. Watching your TikTok videos is how much you seem to be tying all sorts of different things in together from all these different seemingly disparate places. And I think that's when it comes to a theory, that's as powerful as you can get is tying it all together. So which made me even more attracted to these things you're espousing and the Voyager thing. I'm definitely going to read more of it for sure. It's just really interesting, just again, how it's all coming together into this one thing. So go ahead.
Yeah. So they, it's a core philosophy, right? And when you see it, once you see the framework underneath things, you're like, oh, okay. Right. That's what that is. Right. But so where were we? They had a split, and High Council said, we don't exterminate anybody. And have you noticed that you've been a little out of hand lately too? Why don't we all sit down and figure out how we could all do better? And they didn't like that answer.
Sound rational to me. All right.
Yeah, right. Let's heal. No, they didn't want to do that. So you're going to start seeing some of the behaviors that happen over and over again in society here. You can see that kind of behavior, we only murdered them because they wouldn't give us their oil. It's excuse me, you didn't have to murder them, and also you didn't need their oil.
Yeah, there's also other alternatives than just sacking them.
Right,
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you have all sorts of stuff. There's people who won't share their water resource. You're not going to share water. That's just evil. Okay, yeah. But okay.
Or you could just buy it all. But water's sacred, right? So it's a thing. It's an entity unto itself. And she's not fully awake down here because of things that happened, and she lost her ability to choose what kind of coating she wants to run. Yeah. What we have down here, we call it dead water, and people don't like that terminology, and it's not 100% accurate. It's just kind of how we call it. It's more like disconnected water would be a better translation. Because normally it's called hydrolase, and it's a consciousness. It's very easy to speak with, and it makes its own decisions.
Yes.
But here it'll just take whatever coating you give it.
That's really interesting, and that's unfortunate to hear. And I'm wondering, now that you're saying it like that, I'm wondering how many other areas of water areas in the earth are like that now, because I know that there's problems with pesticides, fertilizers, chemicals, runoff from like farms and stuff on the Mississippi going into the Gulf of Mexico and like destroying ecosystems in the Gulf of Mexico. Would that be an example of what you're describing?
Yeah, I mean, it's taking on, because like all these chemicals that they're using, that's an encryption.
It's an encryption. Okay, so
it's
that's what's so fascinating, Ally, is that you have all this like lingo for all this stuff. Okay, it's an encryption. Go ahead. What does that mean?
Yeah, so an encryption is just like it is the coding for the thing. So like if I like in genetic coding, like GATTACA, right? Like that means something maybe.
Well, I know what an encryption is generally.
Yeah,
but so, I mean, like how are the flow of water with all the pesticides and stuff like that, an encryption to the water in the Gulf of Mexico? What does that mean?
So what does that mean? Well, each of those pesticides, each of those herbicides, each of those things has an encryption of something that it does and something that it gets the water to do.
Fair enough. Okay.
And so then it like that part of the water carries that kind of encryption until you heal it.
Gotcha.
Which isn't really that hard to do. There's a pretty little song that we sing. But like even to the point where we do you remember those? I don't normally talk about this, but I guess I will today. Do you remember those wildfires in Australia a couple years ago?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you remember how the water was being held in like clouds off the edge of Australia?
No.
So there were all these clouds. Like I kept watching it. I was like, why isn't it raining? Because it should have been raining that time of year. And you see this huge like rainstorm, but it was held off the coast. And so my partner and I, we actually meditated together, and we talked to the water, and we could hear, we were like, would you mind maybe dropping some water on those fires? It's getting kind of hot down there. And the water was like, we want to, but they're holding us off the coast. And we're like, you know, you could just ignore them, right? And they're like, they giggled. They're like, oh yeah, we can. And then we woke up the next day and it had rained.
Nice.
Which is cool. And then, but it wasn't just us. Like, I don't want to come off like we have this. Like,
no, I'm sure there was, yeah.
We kind of looked, and there were several people that had been impulsed by themselves to meditate on the water moving into Australia, and it had happened the next day. So that was
sometimes
cool.
You just need to be reminded of your potential. Even water does.
Yeah.
You know you can do this, right? Oh yeah, that's right. I can.
You can just ignore them.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Anyway, that's a really I love that story. That's very cool. Okay.
So back to Toth.
Back to Toth.
So basically what they did was what the Anu Elohim did is they backed up the energy in the system. And because basically High Council wouldn't do what they wanted, they're like, well, then we're going to blow up your gate, gate 12. And they were like, there was a decision, and it did come down to a vote. It wasn't very nice, and it could have been stopped.
Yep, you're frozen, buddy. Can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you just froze for a second.
Okay, it could have been stopped, but there was a decision made to allow the gate to be destroyed, knowing that it could be rebuilt. Because the way to stop it from being destroyed would be to throw up a shield, which would have blown up gate 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And not everybody there, like there were billions of years of positive evolution that had happened as to consciousnesses that were associated with those gates. And we wanted to try to salvage as much as we could at that time.
Okay.
And so basically what they did is they figured out, and it was very surprising how well it worked, that you could take the bottom 7 dimensions. So they blew up gate 12 first, like for starters. And then they figured out that you could take the bottom 7 dimensions and flip them around on themselves and create kind of a unified field within the eternal first field of intelligence. And it looks like a tube torus.
Okay.
So, and when we think about the tube torus, which is the core general model of permaculture, and the only part of permaculture that I disagree with, The tube the tube torus is not self-sustaining. It will eventually exhaust its quantum. It always has to have an input because it doesn't have a connection to its source. It's an energy eater.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And so what happens, like you could do that, and you could do it for several billion years, especially if you have stuff to drain energy off of. You can have it last a good long time. But it will eventually run out of stuff to eat and start to consume itself, end up ripping itself apart and returning to source as space dust, which means it's renewed through other forms that creator beings like you and me, and probably most of the people watching, use to create things that they would like to create. And then it's renewed, always goes home, because everything is always part of God, part of source.
Right.
And you can't not be that. And that's something that it's going around in a lot of spiritual teachings around the world, that you can be not part of source. And that's just frankly not possible.
Yeah, like I don't even I understand how you could be wholly separate from source. That doesn't make any sense.
Right, that makes source smaller, right? And not infinite, right?
Right, exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah. To be infinite, to be eternal is to be everywhere always. How could you be? How could you be not be? You can't be nowhere at no time. I mean, that just would be silly.
Yeah. So part of one of our prayers is separation from God is but an illusion, and eternal unity is the only divine eternal truth existing. Like that's
100%. I see that in a multitude of different systems, different approaches, that kind of thing. Even in back in the day I dabbled in some darker stuff, and even like at some point you just kind of have to admit that the unity of everything, and that one is the source, and that's how it goes. As much as some of these dark occultists, whatever, didn't want that to be the case, because there was a lot of megalomania involved, and they wanted to be independent, isolated beings. They had to just, if you just follow the logic of anything, you can't do that. You can't. It's not possible.
Right. Because we're all consciousness, right? And all consciousness is source is consciousness. Like it's the consciousness field.
Yeah.
And there are other ways to talk about it too. But but when you flip it in on itself and you create that tube torus, it's like a little bubble inside of the source field that has this illusion of separation.
Right. And
if you're a being that wants to violate the free will of others, or like be tricky or be authoritarian, like you could be a creator god in there and be authoritarian, and have teachings that come down like of Jehovah, stuff like that.
You can do that there
within the bubble.
Within the bubble, like okay, that's interesting.
You could be an authoritarian in the bubble. I mean, no matter what, if you do these things, and it's free will, like there's only one check to free will in this 15-dimensional time matrix, and that is that there are consequences to your actions.
No, there's that problem.
And those consequences
no matter who you are.
Right, exactly. And those consequences build up, and that's what can lead to what we call a fall state, which is that you rip yourself apart, turn into space dust, and get renewed through new forms.
Right. Interesting.
So for eternal nature to exist, fall state must also exist. Otherwise, source would destroy itself, which is a paradox because that can't happen.
Right.
So for the math to work, that's how it works.
Interesting. Okay.
And so within that bubble, the Anu Elohim created their races. They created the Anunnaki and a bunch of others, but the Anunnaki would be one that we can talk about. And when I talk about these races, I want to make it clear there are beings of these races that made decisions other than their race group has made. I'm talking about the ones that are still a problem when I talk about these beings. I'm not talking about the ones that figured out their shit and decided that they would, you know what, I would like to play fair. I would like to work an ascension agenda and go home that way. These are the ones that are continuing to choose that they like to try to be authoritarian. Like you're talking about
Republicans.
I mean, I'm talking about.
I'm just kidding.
Actually, if we wanted to,
I mean, you certainly sounds like you're describing Republicans, but go ahead.
What's funny is the Anunnaki actually run a different party.
The Anunnaki what?
The Anunnaki run a different political party, not the Republicans.
The Democrats?
Yeah.
I know the Democrats are crap too. Don't get me wrong. No, I was just
the Draconians, the Dracos. So the Dracon created the Dracos, and that would be those are the ones that have been fighting with the Anunnaki down here for millennia. That's why you see in Egypt you have two, you have the Amens and the Ottans, and I don't remember which was which, but one of those is an Anunnaki race line, the other one is a Draconian race line.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so you have the same thing in American politics today, where the red crew is one and the blue crew is the other, and they mostly just fight, right?
Yes.
And so, where are we going with this?
Anunnaki, Toth.
Anunnaki. Okay, so Toth was an Anunnaki. We just explained where they came from. There's a big story about them, but that's enough for now. And so Toth was an Anunnaki. He had a vision for his race, that he was going to go through the things and he was going to accrete frequency. So accrete meaning bring together frequency. So he's going to build his ability to run frequency in order to have a Christed self. So a D12 avatar self, a Christos self, because the real teachings of Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek. Oh, did I freeze?
Al, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So where did
he
we freeze?
He was wanted to create his own race.
Oh, now you're frozen. David, are you there?
Okay, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think I froze and then you froze, and so I left and came back.
And then everything went down. I mean, we lost complete visual and audio.
Oh,
about 30 seconds there. I don't know. This is
hi Toth.
I was having this conversation publicly because that's never ever happened to me like that. I mean, I've seen the image freeze here and there, but never everything going away at the same time. Well, let's keep going and see if it happens again.
Yeah, and I mean, if we really want to freeze it, we can start telling who Metatron is.
Okay, well, let's leave that for the last part of the show, just in case. I just had my like almost a full day with Isis, so maybe she can keep Thoth in line. She is the mother. Go ahead.
So Toth had this vision for his people, for his race lines, for his race group, that he was going to accrete the frequency and build the avatar self. So there's a math and a structure to a soul.
Correct.
And I guess we'll explain that really quick here. So you, as an individuation right here, talking to me, right? On the soul level, you have 12 individuations. So when you meditate, if you step outside yourself and you start to observe yourself thinking, you might notice that there are 11 other yous. Okay. Each soul, 12 individuations. And we could talk about that, like if you manifest as a male and female pair, then that's what a twin flame is. Like that's what we would call a twin flame. It's not always romantic. They're not even always in the same timeline, but that's what it is. And it's to have the experience of running Mane, or masculine energy, and Ire, or feminine energy, which has to do with the spin rates of your Merkaba, which we could talk about later.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. This is what happens is I get going.
How do you memorize all this stuff? Like just consistent
it's more like
study?
Remembering.
Memorizing is different than remembering?
No, like when I read it, it's more like, oh, I forgot that. Now I remember. Like it was already there. I just didn't remember that I knew it.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually Plato's theory of knowledge. All knowledge is recollection.
Okay, I believe it.
It's pretty cool.
Plato was right about that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Other things too.
Plato's cool.
Moving out there. So 12 souls makes one oversoul.
Yeah.
Right? So then that would be 144 simultaneous selves.
Well, this is getting biblical. This numerology is getting biblical. You have the 12 tribes of Israel. You have the 12 apostles. 144,000 people in the Book of Revelations. Jehovah's Witnesses have a different understanding of that than like mainstream Christianity. But these are biblical numbers. Does that mean anything to you that it ties into the Bible at all? Or
Yeah, the Bible was once our book. It's been distorted as shit since then, and it has like a ton of issues in it. But it was once ours. And if you take out more,
when you say ours, what do you mean? What's the name of us?
Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order priests, I guess you could say.
Say that again, please.
Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order.
Oh, Melchizedek Cloister.
Melchizedek, but not Lord Melchizedek. That's another name of Toth.
Not Melchizedek from the Bible.
No, maybe.
Okay.
So there's people who are out there that talk to quote unquote Lord Melchizedek. Have you run across people like that?
No.
Well, anyway,
the only Melchizedek I know is from the Bible.
Okay. So there were Melchizedeks of the Emerald Order, and then there's the Ruby Order as well. Toth was of the Ruby Order. The Emerald Order are the ones that didn't swap genetics with other beings in order to maintain themselves as a cloister race that could always run the frequency. The Ruby Order, it was kind of an upgrade that was offered as kind of a shortcut to build the ability to run 12 codes of frequency, or 12 strands of DNA. We talk about it that way too.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so 144, right? So 12 oversouls is an avatar, which would be 1,728 simultaneous selves.
Okay.
And you, as a human, are at minimum an avatar. So you have at least 1,727 other simultaneous selves. That's how we talk about what people talk about, like other lives. They're simultaneous selves because you're not meant to be finite. You're meant to be eternal. Yeah. And so all these beings are meant to be around all at the same time. And time in the linear sense is really an illusion. It all happens at the same time because it's simply a direction. Yeah. Right. So Toth was working to build his avatar self.
Okay. Who's building the work? Go ahead. Say that last part again.
Toth was working to build his avatar self. Okay. So all 1,728 individuations into 12 souls, 144 souls into 12 oversouls, one avatar. Right. There we go.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Well, and he got really close.
What happened?
Well,
you said he was 11. You said he was 11 and a half dimensional.
11 and a half. That's how far we got. And he was trusted as a speaker, which I should explain what a speaker is. A speaker is a Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order, or at least a speaker, is somebody who's been trusted to translate what are called the Cluster Door Torah plates, which is going to tie us back to Voyagers. Those are translations of the Cluster Door Torah plates, or the Akashic record. ECK, not ACK.
Not Akashic, okay.
No, not Akashic.
I know the Akashic record. Okay.
Yeah, the Akashic record carries distortion. The Akashic record does not carry distortion, but it has had pieces of it eliminated. And then there's the Alhambra record above that, which is complete and undistorted.
Okay.
So Voyagers is Akashic record, Cluster Door Torah plate translation. So he was trusted as a speaker of the Emerald Covenant, which is very complicated. We all come from a common source, and loving co-creation is the only sane and rational response to existence. In a nutshell, that's what it is. That's what we teach. That's the bottom line. Obviously you could talk about different things within there, but that is really the bottom line. Yes. So he was trusted as a speaker, and he was trusted to touch and speak, but not write down what was on Cluster Door Torah plate number 11.
Because
it's a different kind of contract, and to speak it is different than to write it down. It's a level of authority, a level of not authority. That's a bad word to use. It's not the right word. It's a level of
it almost sounds like a union job. Your job is to put up the stairwell. My job is to lay the cement, and neither one does the other.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly that. It's more
universal unionism. I'm just kidding, dude.
You're trusted to speak it now, and maybe in the future you're trusted to write it down if you've shown that you're trustworthy to speak it. Because once you write it down, it's a little more permanent, right?
Yeah.
But what he did, this ties into Lumeria. is he didn't do that. He stole it. And
Thoth is a thief. See, this is just blowing my mind, man. I've had such affections for Thoth, like my entire, almost since I was a kid. And like I said, I have Crowley's Thoth deck. I mean, I'm not going to get rid of it or anything, but I mean, it's just make, you know, I mean, it made me, you know, there's a reason why he called it the Thoth deck, because of like all the occult knowledge was put into it. You know, you think of Thoth as the god of knowledge and wisdom, but you're saying he was kind of more of a Loki type figure.
Well, he was Toth. That's who he is, right? I mean, he's Quetzalcoatl and Hermes Trismegistus.
He's Hermes. I've heard Hermes Trismegistus before. Yeah, okay. I haven't heard Quetzalcoatl.
Mercury, right?
I've heard Mercury. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pythagoras.
That you just told me earlier tonight. That's interesting because Pythagoras is, well, a person.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you want to talk about another person, Hernando Cortez.
I don't know who that is.
Which Cortez with his
Cortez. Yeah,
okay, Cortez, yeah.
Okay,
and Montezuma knew it, actually. If you look that up, Montezuma knew that Cortez was an incarnation of Quetzalcoatl,
really?
Which is who he went by in the Mayan pantheon. But these are beings, right? Like, and so what he did is he stole that plate and distorted it, turned it into a control dogma, and that is what has come through as the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
Which I've also heard of. Okay, so those are bad.
Not bad. They you can learn some truths from them, but there are also untruths within them.
Right.
Because we don't.
Are the truths you can learn? Can you learn them elsewhere?
You could learn. I mean, you could learn all these truths in lots of places.
Okay, that's it's like, you know, somebody. I remember somebody arguing something similar to that. Like, and I'm like, I just remember the response being like, "So what? People should read Mein Kampf in case Hitler stumbled across a couple gems in there." I'm like, no, if it's true, you can find it elsewhere. You don't need to read Mein Kampf.
Right. I mean,
okay.
if you happen to be reading Mein Kampf, don't throw out the truths if they're in there.
Absolutely, 100%. That's a good point. No matter how evil he was, I mean, it's not like everything he said was false.
Right, exactly. Okay. I mean, no one will believe it if it's all false. Like, that's one of the things, is if it's not 30% true, it won't carry any traction with anybody. It has to be, that's the number, 30%. And like some spiritual teachings they really toe that line at 30%. Like,
right. That's right where they stop.
Yeah, and some of them, some of the really tricky ones, they'll be like 90-something%, but the distortions that they add turns it into something else. It turns it into something disempowering instead of something that is about owning your power and using it.
Right, 100%.
Okay. So,
all right, Emerald
Tablets, right? So that's what he did. That was during the Lemurian Holocaust period. There's a whole long story about that I don't really like telling.
Okay,
Lemurian Holocaust.
It doesn't. Well, make it brief. Yeah, Holocaust already is no good.
Yeah, so Thoth basically was still trusted by High Council. Said, he was allowed into Q-Site 12, which is on Kauai, Hawaii, that island. Mm-hmm. That's also one of the openings into Stargate 6. Opens there. It was bypassed because of issues at a point in the past. And there was a. Have you heard of the sliding cities? I think they're remembered in the Sanskrit teachings in Hinduism. Yeah. There's cities that are there sometimes they're not.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, I've heard. Yes.
Yeah, we call those Miage zones. The name is. I mean, the tones actually are important, but you could think about them however you want to. You can call it whatever you want. But anyway, he was allowed in, and ended up betraying all of us and murdering all the men and taking all the women off to Nibiru, and to become breeding vessels, basically, because they wanted to steal the gene code. Because your gene code as a human carries the coding to run the Stargates, because you are a grid worker as a human.
Okay. That makes sense.
And grid work, of course, looks like a big round dance, and the pair in the middle is the pair that can anchor the most, that can carry the most frequency, and then each successive circle out is able to run less. And so the way it works is the energy is run and it's built as it moves toward the middle, and that center pair has to anchor the frequency of the whole group. Sure. And run into the planet.
Sure. Real quick, everybody, anybody who's watching, there's a comment section over here on your right. If you'd like to ask any questions, have any comments, anything like that. I know it's my aunt just put up a face of. So I think that means we're blue. Her mind is being blown. So Yeah, if you have anything you want to say or any questions you want to ask, please feel free to do so. It's over here on the right again. Okay, so we have about 26 minutes left. I'm making sure we have time for sacred geometry. But go ahead with this Holocaust thing.
Yeah, so Lemurian Holocaust, basically what they did is exactly that. And they tricked the women because we birthed in, at that time, the beings that were there, the Moiravians, the Mu, the Mua, they birthed in frequency pairs, with a masculine energy partner and a feminine energy partner, an electric partner and a magnetic partner, right? They'd run energy together, and for an eternal being, like, you could threaten to kill the body, and they're like, okay, go ahead, whatever. Like, I'll get another one. Like, not a big deal. But they threaten the partners.
Right, I can't do that.
And they threaten the partners, and like that wasn't okay, right? And so the deal was to the feminine energy partners, if you will agree to go be breeders in Nibiru, we will spare the men. And so a good part of them agreed to do that to spare their mates. And that's not what happened. The mates were actually taken off to Atlantis and used to run energy through their bodies because they had the ability to anchor a lot of frequency, and ended up leading to the fall of Atlantis. So they found out, the women found out on Nibiru, they found out, and they were in like this big room that has like a balcony, and somebody shouted out what had happened, and a bunch of them threw themselves off the window. The rest of them that were like detained and basically locked up and forced to carry children. And so there's like, I'm sure you could see here where a lot of that pain imprint, a lot of that trauma imprint that's been brought through with the rape culture, with like some women, and they don't want to, they hate kids. And it's because those women knew that the soul they were going to birth was not going to carry a frequency that was good for the universe.
Interesting.
And you run into, there was also like, before they could, like, they didn't only have to agree, they also had to compete to be like, first they had to have the gene code because that's what they really wanted. And then beyond that, it was like, oh, wouldn't you like this color eyes, this color hair, this shape, or whatever. And so you get this competition. Like, this is where these trauma schema were programmed back in the day. So that's the Lemurian Holocaust in a nutshell. That's when Thoth betrayed the Emerald Covenant and really started wrecking things up. Did it again. It didn't really like, for instance, there were still humans that could run a good amount of frequency. And so and this was, let's see, this was like 60,000 years ago. No. This was 26,000. This was 26,556 BCE. So this is like 28,000 years ago. That's when that happened. There was a fall of Lemuria before that. That wasn't really a fall. It was an accident. That we won't talk about. And then at 26,555, no, it would have been anyway. 26,558 BC is the fall of Atlantis. So this was a few years before the fall of Atlantis when that happened.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And is all this stuff you're talking about Thoth and everything, and Atlantis and everything, the Lemurian Holocaust, is this all stuff you find in Voyager?
Some of it's in Voyagers. There's also from the year 2000 until about 2011. There was the Freedom Teaching series was brought through by Iesha, Ashayana, Kananda, a bunch of names. Ashayana Dean would be the on the book, on the front of the book. But so there was the Freedom Teaching series that was brought through, and so this history is kind of spread throughout different workshops it comes in different chunks.
Okay. And I don't have my pen on me, but could you say that again?
The Freedom Teachings series?
Yeah. Freedom Teaching series.
And a lot of those there was a whole thing that happened there where they basically got stolen legally, like through legal means, stolen by somebody who decided that they wanted to do some things that were against what their original plan was, and had them basically the work, they were made to be the legal owner of it, and it had to be purchased back, and it was, but it hasn't been re-released because there were some issues that were added into it later, and so it'll get re-released whenever it's ready, or whenever it's time. I don't know when that is. That's not my it's not my job.
Not your jurisdiction.
Not my jurisdiction. I don't deal with that. I just teach the things that I teach.
Okay.
And a lot of this stuff is in that series. And
Is that accessible to anybody online? Is that something you have to like pay for or go through something to get to, or can I go on YouTube and find it?
No. It's the Freedom Teaching series is actually really hard to get a hold of.
Okay.
I have a library of it, and I'm teaching parts of it that I'm told that I tell myself to teach, right? But it's not like there are parts of it that teach about light body anatomy, which I'm assuming you've run across light body in your studies. And there's a distortion, there's a problem, there's a virus, we'll say, in the light body of the planet. And so if you teach somebody to activate their light body and start working with it, they're going to pick up what's on the planet as well because of the planetary biofeed interface system. So there's a bunch of words in a row. Planetary biofeed interface system. Your Cathara Center. So Cathara is
like catharsis.
Ooh, that's an interesting connection. Like Cathari, the Cathars in France.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They taught Cathara healing. Cathara means light sound one.
Okay.
And so Cathara healing, we talk about the 12 Cathara centers, and the Cathara, I don't know if I can actually present a picture from here. I would show you, but I don't think I have a button to show a picture on here. Next time I'll use my laptop and we'll try it. Sure. But so the Cathara, it looks like you've run across like the Kabbalah and what they call the Tree of Life and stuff that has 10 or 11 energetic centers, or Sephiroth is what they call them.
10.
Yeah. Sometimes they teach about 11.
Oh, well, Doth. Yeah, in the middle.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
the Cathara grid has 12.
Okay.
And when you see it, it's symmetrical. Like in both directions, it's symmetrical.
Okay.
And it like layers on itself and creates this beautiful crisp spiral.
Very cool. Yeah, okay.
And so now we're right into sacred geometry. Here we are.
There you go.
So that, I mean, the shape of the universe is built on the deepest. There are deeper levels than that, but the Cathara grid is like a good level of organization to start with, because you can actually find the centers in the body and you can feel them, and like most of them, like for instance, if you the 10, that's taught by Draconian souls because they have 10. Anunnaki have 11. Humans have 12. Your Cathara center number 1, which is the one that's below your feet, is in the same place as the planet's Cathara center number 1. And through your Cathara centers, your first Cathara centers, yours and the planet's, you are able to share energy and frequency back and forth. Meaning that if the planet's carrying a distortion, you're going to pick it up. Or if you find a healing, you could share it. Or if the planet has a healing, you can pick it up if you choose to. Like both directions, right? It's an open love story between you and the planet. That's what it's meant to be.
I like that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the teachings, right? And so if you teach somebody to start to activate their light body and work with it before they have protected themselves, and we have, I'm sure you noticed, or have you seen on my TikTok, in my link tree, I have like a link and it says like plasma journey or plasma meditations or plasma seal or something like that.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. So those meditations, once somebody's done those, then the light body work is not, well, when they're ready to do it, it's fine. But until you've done that, you can pick that up. The plasma meditations, what they do is we're out here in what's called external creation. Right over here, external creation. And then over here, we have, well, this is all backward. We have internal creation, right? And then they phase with a third, which is eternal creation. They phase and 2 become 3 become 1, and then create the spark, back out to source, backflow, return spark, back out into 2 become 3 become 1. It's perpetual motion, right, with an intact connection to source, where it's a sacred energy exchange with source, not only with the plant but also with source, and a lot of things in between. So external creation, internal creation. Yourself from internal creation carries the original encryption of you. And so what the plasma meditations do is you're bringing in the frequencies that are the original encryption of yourself in order to fix the shit you picked up, basically. Fix the problems you picked up in your energetic body. and it kind of seals it. You almost laminate yourself. Well, it's a lot like laminating yourself.
Imagine myself going through a machine getting laminated. Okay.
Yeah, so you're laminating yourself in your own frequencies so that you don't pick up the gunk.
That's good.
And yeah, it's quite helpful. It turns out. And so until somebody's done that work and has started to work with their the plasma levels of themselves, then it's not particularly safe to do the light body work. So a lot of the light body teachings have just been put on hold. Like the healing modalities have been put on hold as well. We used to do healing on each other, and I mean maybe with your partner, you're both you know your fields, you know each other's fields. You could do something that way, but it would be really difficult to hold like a client session and offer catharic healing for them. Show you how to do it yourself, but I'm not gonna work on you. I don't want to share anything that might be stuck on me, and I don't want to pick up anything that might be stuck on you. Is kind of the idea, right?
Sure.
Or I mean, I guess you could also consider your plasma body like putting on gloves for your metaphysical anatomy. I mean, we know about that.
Yeah. Does this tie into Reiki at all?
Reiki would be Reiki and chakra healing is like. Oh, the analogy I've been using, it's like working on a table when the foundation of the house is crooked. And so you could get it to work again. You can get it back aligned, but the foundation beneath it, the house's foundation would be the Kathara centers. If those are misaligned, it's going to fall back out. And so it would be a deeper level of energy work than Reiki or chakra healing or.
Well, I texted the promo to a couple of friends of mine who one of them is a Reiki energy worker, and so I wonder if she's watching right now. I can't tell, but we'll see. Again, comments on the right if you want to, folks.
Yeah, please disagree, agree, ask questions, anything. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. So numbers.
Most of these go through most of the time when I teach and speak. I mostly just hang out and then people ask questions and then out it comes, as I'm sure you've noticed right now in our conversation.
That's how it is with me on my shows. I mean, I know the topic generally, and you don't even know you know it.
Right. And so these things build on each other, right? And like the sacred energy exchange, this that exists because love is a state of vibrational harmonization. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And say that one more time. Love is a state of vibrational harmonization. Right. So that which you send and that which you receive are in balance.
Okay.
So if somebody like martyrdom is out of balance, which is taught by some strong world religions that have a sacred geometry that I find quite deleterious.
I like that word, deleterious.
Where they want that which you give not to equal that which you receive.
Right.
And then there are other teachings that say you got to get yours. And so that what you receive is not balanced to that which you give. That's vampirism, martyrdom and vampirism, or victimizer, which is the core. That's one of the oldest games, one of the oldest tricks that was played. And it was actually part of an experiment that got out in the parallel Akasha. So in a place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we'll say. Where basically what happened there is part of their system was undergoing an organic fall, and it was really they were grief stricken, and so they came up with an experiment that they were going to fix eternal nature so that no one could fall. But if you do that, then eternal nature doesn't exist. And so basically the experiment got out of its quarantine and infected over here, and here we are. But it also opened the door for what's been happening lately with, well, I guess we'll just talk about it. The Jehovah's trumpet bursts. So, the Christian book of Revelation, talk about the 7 trumpets. Mm-hmm. They're frequency trumpets. They're not physical trumpets.
Well, I never thought of them as physical, but okay.
So it's an energy form, which I'll draw half of it right here. It kind of goes like this, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other half goes this way. Okay. So it looks like a trumpet. Okay. And this is an energy weapon that can be used to do certain things. It activates the Jehovah's seals on the planet, which are along a certain energetic line. They're on the left side of your physical body, which you may have noticed for the last 7 years. On the left side of your body in November, maybe something started bothering you on that left side. That would be the Jehovah's seal in your physical body. resonating with that of the planet as it was attempted to be activated.
Hmm.
And then we have a response to this, which is the chevron bursts that come out in May. The trumpet has to be allowed to build frequency to a certain level, and then the chevron burst comes out and it builds frequency very, very quickly. It's kind of a chevron shape.
Mm-hmm.
And it entrains it, transmutes it, and moves on. We have 8 chevron bursts that happen in transmuting it and then helping the planet in its healing. There we go. So there's a little bit of geometry there. We could, I suppose, talk about, as we go here, we were talking about the Cathara grid, and there's a spiral that fits within that, and it's called the Christ spiral. And I'll give you the mathematical sequence of that. It's 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024.
Say he started again. Give me the first 6 numbers again.
0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 8.
That's the Fibonacci sequence.
Nope.
0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8.
No,
2, 4, 8. That's the Fibonacci sequence.
No, the Fibonacci sequence is 1, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you're right.
5.
It doesn't start at 0.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's a stepwise function. That's not a true spiral.
Okay.
The Christ spiral is each number is all of the previous numbers, all the way back to 0, added up, is the next number. And, I mean, effectively, it doubles. Each number doubles, but that's how you can rattle them off really quickly. But if you look at the math, it's like 0, okay, 1, okay, nothing, and then source, and then 1, source created, and then, oh, creation plus source is another 1. Cool, 0, 1, 1. All right, 1 plus 1 plus 0. Oh, now that's 2. So 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0, 4. 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0, 8. And so on and so forth, forever and ever. And at every point on this spiral, there is a direct relationship all the way back to 0 or source. The Fibonacci spiral, which isn't even a true spiral because it's stepwise, each number only has a relationship to the 2 numbers before it at every point. And at no point on that spiral is there a relationship to source or 0.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, you don't start the sequence at 0, but okay, go ahead.
And it never has a connection to 0. Like it never, at no point on that spiral is it 0 because.
See, but now we're contradicting ourselves because we said earlier you can't ever be wholly disconnected from the source.
It's not.
Okay, good.
Because the Fibonacci spiral, it doesn't have a direct connection. It doesn't have a direct connection.
Gotcha.
It still exists within source. It's still made out of the stuff of source.
Yes.
But it doesn't have a direct connection to source because that was built to pull energy. It's a vampire math. It was built to pull energy off of the Christ spiral of a being that has an intact connection to source.
Oh. Fibonacci sequence is a vampire sign.
Yeah, it's vampire math. Just like the what people call the flower of life. We call that the bloom of doom, daisy of death, fractal flower.
Yeah, because I mean the Fibonacci sequence, that's like sunflowers and like seashells and stuff.
Not all of them, actually.
I mean not all of them, but it's okay.
Some things are close, but some of them have the Christ spiral. And it's because when you build at the template level, when you build a system off of this math, when you program this math into the planet and into a bunch of the life field of the planet, it's going to manifest and you're going to see it like on Romanesco broccoli, right? That has that spiral all over it. You know, it's really, I think of it more as cauliflower, but it has all the spirals on it. It's green. Yeah. It looks like a green cauliflower. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It looks like a fancy coral reef or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so you see stuff like that, right? Sorry, horticulturist, right?
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But so you see it existing in nature, but that doesn't mean it's organic. I mean, if you woke up here and had no memory and you looked out and you saw people farming in the Midwest with tractors and pesticides and chemicals and fertilizers and harvesting, you would think that was the organic way that things worked, but that's not organic, right? That's not an intact ecosystem. So that's the same thing. That's why you see Fibonacci all over the place. That's why you see the tube torus, because everything carries a part of the distortion because of the planetary biofeed interface system. If you program a distortion to the planetary field, it will manifest itself into the life field. So to birth in here at all, we do certain things like we have to eat, right? That's not organic, but we do it. We need to, otherwise we will die. This body will die. Right. We ourselves are eternal.
Yes. Okay, that's very. I mean, is there like a creation story behind all this? I mean, you talk about the source, you talk about create a thing, things that are directly related to the source, things that are not. Is there any sort of creation story? Like, I mean, like when I think of sacred geometry, it's
It's a
not.
creation story.
It is a creation story because it starts with zero, and the idea of sacred geometry, as far as I understand it, is you start with zero as eternity, spaceless, no space, no time, and it's the source. It's all things at once. And from that, as you have one single unit, you have the number one. But number one, actually, instead of using numbers as quantitative things, you think of them qualitatively. So, like the number one means unity. Number two means division, or it could mean coupling. Number three could mean strife, or like complexity. Instead of saying like a single unit, two single units, three three single units, and so are defining numbers in very quantitative ways. You define numbers as very qualitative instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, we do have a story that will take me more than 4 minutes to tell about how like all that happened. But I mean, it all starts at like the beginning was source, right? And then source created. Like at the beginning was nothing and everything.
Right.
Like right there at the beginning was source, and then source had a thought. Maybe I should make a creation, and that's where we start. Is like at first source had a thought of maybe I'll make a creation, and then we talk about the first we call them partikai, which a partikai phases, and it has a particle and a particum. So the unity, the undifferentiated or the void energy, and then that births the magnetic energy. And then of the magnetic energy is sped up and birth the electric energy. Meaning that out of Ire, Mane was created. Meaning that out of the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine was created. So for people who have, paid attention maybe to some Genesis stories, they might see that that's a little backward from what they were taught at that point. Which, I mean, it starts to make a lot of sense why the patriarchal nature? Why the subjugation of women? Because there's a power there. Because of the creation of the universe, sound came first.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the word and the void. Right. And then light. So from there, right, so source sends energy and creates the first particle, and then the second particle comes, splits it. Sorry, trying to get my hand to do it. Splits it, and then it comes back together, phases, sends a backflow return spark. Then the spark comes, says holla, or the sparks go, says holla. Source sends back, says Allah. And they all have sounds actually associated with them. I just only remember the first one because it's holla and then Allah.
Right.
And then, of course, the first 7 sounds of creation being Kara Yasa Tahala. You say that really fast, you hear Christ and Allah, don't you? Sure. Right? Kara Yasa Tahala. Adore. Anyway.
Does this tie in? So does all this tie into Christianity somehow?
I mean,
is Christ a figure in all this?
So in 2 minutes, can I do the story? The story that came down is the Jesus story. The Christ story is kind of a conglomeration of 2 and a third beings. Like there's a third one involved. The third one's the one that actually died.
All right, go ahead.
So you have Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek, who's a Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order incarnate priest, came in with 12 strands of DNA activated in order to reset the divine template, to prepare the planet to be able to run 12 strands of frequency for the year 2000 stellar activation cycle. Like that was the core mission.
The year what?
Had a twin. The year 2000, it already happened. The 12 Club Pulse was anchored, but different things happened. So there was a project we were doing called the Bridge Zone Project. Didn't happen. But like in preparation of that plan, that's what Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek was doing. Was Speaker 2 actually in that time period. John the Baptist was Speaker 1, and Miriam, who is Easha, who's Speaker 1 right now, she was Speaker 3 at that time, and in that time frame. The other being. And he didn't. You don't really hear much about him. No one really didn't really tick people off too much because he just kind of did his thing, did his grid work, gave his teachings, made his translations, and kind of like they had access to the inner earth portals, so he would just kind of like move here to there, like. And then you had the ninth dimension being that came in with 9 strands of DNA activated, who's an Anunnaki soul called Jeshiwa. And that was part of the Anunnaki Biogenesis project in order to help them to be able to build their, because we keep trying to help. We keep trying to say, you can build a connection, a direct connection to source. You don't have to get it from someone else. Like, it's all about empowering the ones who have fallen. And decided, once they got him birthed in, the Anu Elohim were like, oh, hey, we got that fancy new gene code. Ended up actually tricking, basically, Marahari, who came through as Mary Magdalene, who was a twin flame of Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek, tricking her into pairing with Jeshiwa instead of Jeshua. And that caused a whole mess of problems, and Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek was not able to complete his mission. That's the one that ended up, that one and Marahari, or Mary Magdalene. Those are the ones that, like, you see the silly Dan Brown book where they go to France and all that stuff. That was Jeshiwa. The Jeshua story, wow. Jeshua did leave behind some children. The first one and the 8th one are the only ones that, like, left children of their own. The 6 in the middle had what looked like progeria, basically, where they accreted the frequency they needed to very, very quickly and moved on. One came through as white buffalo woman or white buffalo calf woman, depending on which nation you ask in Native American teachings. And the other one was a secret and was in the 8th one was in Amsterdam area. And so the one that died was another guy who was kind of a pickpocket that looked a little bit like Jeshiwa. And he got kind of convinced through holographic insert technology that he was Jeshiwa, and was told that if he would die for his god, that they would give him immortality. And they can give immortality. They cannot give eternal nature. They can't give, but immortal nature they can give, because immortal nature has to feed on other things. Sure. But eternal nature does not. Sure. And so did that thing, and so... now the Pharisees and Sadducees, which are race lines, not just religious sects, thought that they got him. And so a scene divide happened, and then Jeshiwa was still trusted because communication was poor in those days. Cathar divide happened, a scene massacre happened, Cathar massacre happened. I mean, the Catholics did that. They were after one of the Cluster Torah plates. Yeah, they were after one of the Cluster Torah plates. And when I think about that time period, all I remember is being like, I remember being in a cave underground. That's all I remember of that time period when I tried to go there.
That's interesting, because I could see myself there. I just never really pursued that whole thing. When I was reading about it for the first time, it struck me as extremely familiar.
Yeah.
Something I should probably look into.
What was that crusade called again? Do you remember?
What number was it called? I don't think it was. The crusade was the Middle East.
Cathar. No.
The Cathars lived in some like valley or something, and they were coming up with like
Montsegur, France.
Yeah, they were coming up with things that the Jesus again was not divine or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the Cathars sins were, but the church wasn't having it and sent in what's his face, the guy who made the order Loyola. Or was it the Dominicans? Anyways, one of those guys came in there and just slaughtered them.
Yeah, there was a name for it. It was.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there was a name for a crusade that was, but
let's find out.
Yeah, the Cathars were also.
What was the name of the Cathar crusade?
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. The First Crusade was the first of a series of religious wars.
What was the name of the Cathar crusade?
It
keeps putting in SR instead of Cathar. I'll look it up later. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so the Cathars were. There was a divide there, but they were giving the same. Cathar comes from Cathara. They were giving these same teachings. The Essenes were giving these same teachings because the teachings of the Emerald Covenant have been brought repeatedly to every culture on the planet, and then they get distorted and turned into control dogmas over and over again. But the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order commission and responsibility is to always bring the teachings back, no matter what. Even if nobody wants to hear it, they at least deserve to have the option to know about it if they want to.
That's very cool. We're about 5 minutes over, but that's okay. Fascinating conversation. I love this stuff. And we're definitely going to have you on many, 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 many more times because there's more to discuss. Where would people go if they want to look into stuff like this?
So, I mean, I have a TikTok channel where they're welcome to ask questions, and I try to make videos. I've been slow lately at keeping up with them. But
I mean, you must have found this stuff somewhere. Where did you?
Oh, yeah. We're getting there.
Okay.
So that TikTok channel is at @your_ally, and I do talk about where this information comes from. Okay. They're on there. There's the arrayas.com website, which is www.arhayas.com.
One more time. www.arhayas.com. ayas.com.
And that's where Speaker 1, Iesha, Ashayana, Kananda, a bunch of other names, ends in Melchizedek. That's where she is putting out current teachings. So we're on the Keylontic Discourses for Daily Living teachings right now, Element 3, which has been ongoing for like 7 years. They don't come out that often. Yep, there's her website. The Voyagers books, like if people are looking for them, Voyagers 2 is available on there. Please don't buy it on Amazon. It's like $900.
It's crazy, man. What's up with that?
Yes. So there was a printing last March, and there were some copies, and I got one finally, a printed copy. And I paid like $17 for it, actually $16 and some odd cents. But because it's kind of hard to get a hold of, certain people buy copies up, and when it becomes scarce, they put them up for $900.
Okay. So okay. Because okay.
But it's $17.77 on her website.
Okay. Which is far more reasonable.
Yeah, it's actually like I would pay a lot more than that for it. But and then Voyagers 1 is not currently available. It's undergoing an update because it was written at a time. So we're definitely over time here. But prior to the year 2000, there was a treaty called the Treaty of Altair. And in that treaty, the Anunnaki were going to turn over certain grid sites that they held control over to the Christic races in order to help the planet in its ascension during the Bridgestone project. And in kind of trade, everything that they had done in the history of the planet that caused the problems that they had caused, that they had been a big part of. I mean, there's consent, right? So we played a part in it. But there was no trust that humans would be humans in it because they would never be like, oh, okay, let's learn to do better. Anyway, sorry, my dog's whining here.
Okay, it's cute.
Once they broke the Treaty of Altair in the year 2000, that's when the information came out. But before that, there were certain things that were lies weren't told, but certain things were held back, and they were going to be released over time. Once they broke that treaty in the year 2000, basically the whistle got blown on everything that had been happening, which you'll see in the back of Voyagers 2. There's that thick of it is all just well, here's all the groups and here's what they're up to and here's what they want. And so my suspicion is that is what's getting put back into Voyagers 1 is the things that were held back originally. And so that will be re-released when it's ready. But with these translations, I mean, you never know. Things are coming through a checkerboard mutation where she'll get 5 words of this paragraph to right now. And then the next thing that she translates will be, 10 pages of a different work entirely. And so it's very time consuming for her to bring it through.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. Very cool. Ally, sir, thank you so much, man. This is again, fascinating conversation. I love this stuff. And I want to learn more about this. This is interesting. I go back to how you're just bringing it all together. That's for somebody who studied, system science and philosophy and how to construct theories properly. That's how you do it. So that's very interesting stuff. Thank you. Yeah, let's be in touch for sure. Make sure we get you back on. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully we're not too brain mushy at this point.
No, exactly. I think it's okay. And for all of you that didn't understand 90% of what was said tonight, stay tuned for the next time. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Gadfly with your host, David Rich, and special guest, Ally. Ally, again, thank you very much. Till next time, everybody, take care.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a great night.
Later.